When my daughter screamed, "You ruined my life." That day, something inside me cracked, not because of the words, but because I knew one day she'd understand why I did what I did. She stood in the doorway, her suitcase half open, tears streaking down her cheeks. I remember her hair, messy, her eyes burning with that fire only youth can hold. She was 21, full of dreams, love, and defiance. The man she wanted to marry, Tyler, stood behind her, hands in his pockets, pretending to be calm. But I could see the smirk behind his polite smile. I'd seen men like him before. Charm without truth, confidence without decency. I told her softly, "You don't know him like I do, sweetheart." She shouted back, "You just don't want me to be happy." That line, it still echoes. Because all I ever wanted was her happiness. I had done my homework. Tyler wasn't what he appeared to be. I'd quietly found out he'd been fired from his last job for stealing money. He'd been in another relationship only months before, and there were rumors of him owing money to people around town. But love blinds reason. She didn't care. And when I refused to give my blessing, she packed her things. That night, I sat by the window, staring at the empty driveway where her car once stood. She didn't look back. And I didn't stop her. People say time heals, but in that moment, time just froze. I watched the light in her room fade, and for the first time since her mother passed away, I felt completely alone. But I told myself, let her go. Let life teach her what words cannot. My name is David Cole. I've lived my whole life in a quiet suburban town in Oregon. I ran a small hardware store, one that had been my father's before me. We weren't rich, but we were steady. Honest work, simple meals, and quiet evenings. That was our rhythm. My wife, Linda, passed away when our daughter Emily was just 16. Losing her broke us both, but in different ways. I buried myself in work. Emily buried herself in dreams, art, travel, and finding love. She was the kind of girl who could make anyone smile. The kind who saw good in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. I used to admire that, until I realized how dangerous it could be. When Tyler appeared, he came out of nowhere, confident, smooth, always knowing what to say. He'd visit the store sometimes, buy small things he didn't need, just to make conversation. At first, I didn't think much of it. But one evening, Emily brought him home. He walked in wearing a grin and a leather jacket, shaking my hand with the kind of pressure that hides insecurity. "Nice to finally meet you, Mr. Cole," he said. I nodded, offering a polite smile. "So, what do you do, Tyler?" He shrugged. "I'm between jobs right now. Got a few projects I'm working on." I didn't like vague answers. I've lived long enough to know that good men don't hide behind words like projects. Still, Emily was happy, glowing even. And after years of seeing her lonely since her mother's death, I didn't want to be the villain. But weeks turned into months, and I saw patterns: late-night calls, sudden disappearances, money missing from her savings. And when I asked, she said, "Dad, stop acting like I'm a child." That's when I knew I had to be the parent she needed, not the friend she wanted. Tyler moved in with Emily after just 4 months. She told me one morning over breakfast, her tone light, as if she was announcing she'd bought a new dress. I said quietly, "You sure that's wise, honey?" She frowned. "Dad, I'm not asking for permission." I didn't argue. I'd learned the hard way that sometimes silence speaks louder than reason. From then, things changed. She stopped visiting as often. When she did, she seemed distant, always defending him, always distracted. I knew she was struggling, though she'd never admit it. The sparkle in her eyes was replaced by something forced. A few months later, my friend Mark, who worked at the local auto shop, told me he'd seen Tyler trying to sell Emily's car. That was my breaking point. I drove straight to their apartment that evening. When she opened the door, she looked thinner, tired, like someone carrying too much on her shoulders. "Where's Tyler?" I asked. She hesitated. "Out. Why?" I stepped inside. Because he's trying to sell your car, Emily. Her face went pale. That's not true. I sighed. I have the papers, honey. Mark saw him. I didn't want to believe it either. She grabbed her phone, dialing him immediately, shouting questions I couldn't hear. He didn't answer. Minutes later, she turned to me, tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this, Dad? Why can't you just let me live my life? I said softly, because you're my life. That night, she screamed those words that cut deeper than any knife, you ruined my life. And I said nothing. Because anything I said then would have only made me her enemy. She left that night. For 2 years, she didn't call. I kept sending letters. Never accusatory, just updates about the store, her old room, how the maple tree outside was still growing. She never replied. But I knew she was alive. Small-town gossip travels fast. People said they'd seen her working at a diner 2 towns over. Tyler, apparently, had disappeared. I stayed quiet. I didn't chase her. I wanted her to find her way back, not through guilt, but through understanding. It was winter when she came back. 3 years older, thinner, but stronger somehow. I was closing the shop one evening when I saw her standing outside, holding a small bag and looking at the sign like it was something from another life. When our eyes met, she smiled faintly. Hi, Dad. I just nodded, afraid that if I spoke too soon, I'd break the fragile peace between us. We went inside. I made her some tea, the same kind her mother used to love. For a long time, she said nothing. Then finally she whispered, "You were right about him." I didn't react. Just listened. She told me how Tyler had been borrowing money from her, promising to start a business. Then one day he was gone, leaving her with debt, unpaid rent, and humiliation. He used me, Dad, she said, her voice shaking. And I didn't want to come back because I was ashamed. I reached across the table and took her hand. There's nothing to be ashamed of, Emily. Loving the wrong person doesn't make you weak. Staying with them would've. She broke down then, years of pain spilling out like water from a dam. And I let her. That night, after she fell asleep in her old room, I sat by the window again. The same spot where I once watched her drive away. And I realized, sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about being patient enough to let truth do the talking. Life had shown her what I couldn't. That was my quiet revenge, not on her, but on the man who thought he could destroy her spirit. He didn't. He only made her wiser. Weeks turned into months. Emily stayed with me while she rebuilt her life. She found work at a local art studio, the same one her mother once dreamed of opening. Sometimes, I'd see her sitting in the garden, painting under the afternoon sun. Peace looked good on her. One day, she came to me holding an envelope. Inside was a letter, from Tyler. He'd been arrested for fraud in another state. The letter was a half-hearted apology, mixed with excuses. She handed it to me and said, "I don't even feel angry anymore." I smiled. "That's how you know you've healed." She tore the letter gently, piece by piece, letting the wind take it away. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me." I chuckled softly. Oh, I gave up arguing. But I never gave up waiting. She laughed, that same pure, carefree laugh I hadn't heard in years. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that younger version of her, stubborn, rebellious, lost in her illusions. And I realize I wasn't fighting her back then. I was fighting for her future. That's something most parents never get credit for until it's too late. 6. Ending, reflection, and moral lesson. Approximate. 600 words. It's been 10 years since that stormy day she screamed those words. Now she's married, to a kind man who treats her with the respect she once thought was weakness. They visit every Sunday. Sometimes they bring my grandson, who runs around the same backyard she once played in. And every time she hugs me goodbye, she whispers, "I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything." That's all the revenge I ever needed. To see her happy. To see her wise. To see her whole. Looking back, I realize something. People often mistake silence for surrender. But silence, when rooted in truth, is the most powerful reply there is. If I had shouted, forced, or punished her that day, I would have lost her forever. But by stepping back, I let time be the teacher. Because some lessons don't belong to words, they belong to life itself. My daughter once said I ruined her life. But years later, she thanked me for saving it. And that is enough. Sometimes love means breaking your own heart to protect someone else's. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone learn the hard way, while you quietly keep the door open for their return. And sometimes, silence is the best revenge.